Tonight's meditation, as we do the first Thursday of every month, is question and answer. This is maybe my favorite. And I do want to hear what's going on with you. And if you have like just a totally esoteric philosophical question that could apply to everybody, that's great too. But the questions, like when I was going to my Sifu's classes, I would always be thinking like, I got to come up with the perfect question that makes me sound so good. Don't worry about sounding so good. Just ask something that is really important to you and that's going to like cut to the bone of what's going on with you in life or your meditation practice. As always, my answers are not the answer. There are lots of answers. This is the best answer that I've got for you tonight. And if you ask me again in 30 years, I'll give you a much better question or a much better answer. So if you guys have questions on social media, you can just type it into the comments. I know we got a couple of students watching right now. And if you got questions at home on Zoom, you can press the button to raise your hand. I'll start off with Frida. Go ahead.
Good evening, Sifu. This question is regarding the sash. My question is, what is the reasoning behind not putting the sash on visibly in the dojo? In other words, having to do it in the dressing room. And the other part of it is, why can't we arrive at the dojo already wearing the sash? I guess they're interrelated.
Yeah. So I'll say this. If you know you're going to be late and you want to wear your sash and like you're just going from the car, no, because you're walking across the street. So your uniform is for the dojo. Your uniform is not for wearing out. When every Halloween, I have to explain to the children that your martial arts uniform is not a costume for you to wear trick-or-treating. You will get it messed up. I get people showing up with coffee stains on their shirt, chocolate on their sash. So you can wear the rest of your uniform like going from home to the dojo, but your sash goes on when you're here. The exception for that would be if you're like me and you can park downstairs and go straight up and nobody else gets to see you. So your uniform is, there's just like the etiquette is like your uniform is not for wearing outside like as just an everyday outfit. Certainly not a costume. And your sash is the part of it that completes your uniform for you. I'm not going to say that you're not allowed to wear your uniform shirt and pants to the dojo, but you don't wear your sash to the dojo. And it's kind of the same idea. So you change in the changing room and then you come out. Of course, if you need help tying your sash, some of you guys are, going to get a white sash for the first time and you're allowed to have it there outside the changing room so that I can teach you how to tie it. Okay. But generally, you're wearing your sash only in the dojo and you put it on there. It's kind of like, I see people sometimes like just put their belts on around their neck and like walk out and you're just kind of like talking and like it's a very not serious and not like, I'm not going to say it's disrespectful because that implies almost like there's a malice there. And I know there's no malice, but it's just like not taking care with what you're doing. At least that's the way that it looks. So it is about really taking care, being respectful. And now that you know that that's the way you're supposed to do it, that's the way you do it. For a second, I thought you were going to ask me something totally different. And this just triggered in my mind this idea of what is the sash? Like why a sash versus a belt? Why a belt at all? Why is there rank? I'll give you the quick 3 minutes history of the sash and the belts and all that. So in martial arts, the idea of rank until very recently was just there's a teacher and there's a student. right? And maybe above the teacher, there's like the teacher's teacher, the master of the school or the style or whatever. The individual ranks of getting, yellow, green, red, black, all of that is a more recent thing. It was invented by Jigoro Kano, the founder of judo, about 50, 60 years ago. And this was actually by now way longer than that. Sorry, I keep forgetting that it's 2020s, not 2000 or the 90s, like when they started. So in any case, this was a way to kind of keep track of who knows more and who can help the other people, who you should be using as an example. And we use sashes instead of belts because in a Chinese martial art, the Chinese uniform uses a sash. It was traditionally worn on the outside of the jacket like this, and everybody in the school would wear the same color sash. And that's still done sometimes. You go to a very traditional Chinese martial arts school, a kung fu school, usually, they've got all the students same sash, same color sash. That's like just the uniform of the school. But now we use it in the same way that they will in Korean styles or Japanese styles to kind of show the rank. And you'll notice that it goes from the lightest color to the darkest color. It goes from white to black in most styles of martial arts. And the symbolism behind that is you wear your sash in practice and it gets like dirtier and dingier the more experience you get. If you were to start with white, it would eventually get so dark that it would be black. And that's like more experience. If you wear your uniform outside and you spill coffee on it, you're cheating. You cannot just accidentally spill stuff on your sash and say, look, I'm a black belt now. I'm a black sash. I got a really dirty, filthy sash. For the same reason, we don't wash the sash, and in jiu-jitsu, we don't wash the belt. And some people don't like this. And look, if you notice that your sash starts to smell real bad because it's the only part of your uniform you don't wash, same thing with your jiu-jitsu belt, you are totally allowed to like wrap it in a dryer sheet or something. If you're going to spray it with Febreze, don't soak it. But it can smell nice, but you should not wash it. And that is part of like the symbolism behind it. And some people laugh at that, but I like it. You want to keep all of your good like mojo and all the skills that you have learned in your sash. You don't want to wash it and get rid of it. Also, your sash will rip and tear if you put it through the washing machine. So at the end of class, at the beginning of class, you come in, it should be in a nice kind of folded or rolled up, neat little package. Then you get here and you unfurl it and you tie it around your sash. You put it through hell during class and then you take it off and you tie it up again and wrap it up in a nice little thing so that it stays there. It's not just in a heap in your bag. You don't go home and drop it and drag it on the ground. You're just kind of really taking care of your uniform and your sash so that you have an opportunity to be mindful, be aware, use that as an opportunity to practice all that stuff. And just like bowing on and off the mats, it's just an opportunity to be mindful. We choose that this is the way that we do things because etiquette is just another way to be mindful and present. Other question? Kaya, go ahead.
So I'm wondering about, there's certain techniques that I practice like thousands of times, and only now like I'm noticing certain nuances of it. And I'm wondering, was I doing it wrong the whole time, or it's just like the little more details become clear the longer I do it?
Wonderful question. So you'll experience this in your physical practice and in your meditation and in life. The question for those of you who didn't hear it was, I'm noticing that techniques that I've done thousands of times, I'm now starting to recognize mistakes that I'm making. And what is that? Is it something I've been doing wrong the whole time? Likely, yes. That's the most likely, unfortunate explanation for this. There is, of course, a possibility that you haven't done something in a while and you actually get worse at it. And of course, that will happen when you take long breaks from your practice. So don't take long breaks if you can avoid it. But it's going to happen that you will recognize mistakes that you're making. And it is most likely the case that what you are realizing is you've been doing something wrong the whole time. Now, when you make that realization, it can be very demoralizing. You can think to yourself, oh, I've been wasting my time. Every single time I've been throwing this punch, I've been doing it wrong. I had my thumb in the wrong place. And look, a lot of these are obvious, right? So this I kind of joke. If you punch one time with your thumb like this, you're going to realize that that's wrong. But it could be a slight angle, a very small thing. And the more subtle the detail is, the more likely it is something that you just have overlooked over the years. And the same thing happens in meditation, right? So I get this question all the time. Sifu, what does it mean when I'm meditating and I feel like I'm getting worse? I have a busier mind with more thoughts than I used to have. And what is most likely happening here, it's not a guarantee. It's possible that you have actually started to slip with your meditation practice and you've spent too much time away from it, or your meditation, you're just being real lazy and sloppy with it and your mind is actually getting less focused. But most likely, especially if you have a good consistent practice, what's happening is you're just noticing things that were there the whole time. You're noticing thoughts that either that specific thought or just the amount of thoughts have always been there, and you're just now finally with it enough, you're actually aware enough to recognize that. It is a good sign when that happens. And this is not something that most people take as a good sign. Usually when people have this experience, they think, this is bad. I have lots of thoughts and I'm getting worse at meditation. The same thing with your practice physically. This is bad. This is a detail that I've been messing up. This is no good. It's actually a good thing. It is a good thing because it's a sign that you are becoming more aware. And it's a good thing because you're recognizing the thing that you're messing up. If you never recognize it, you're going to keep messing it up for the rest of your life. True in meditation, true in life. So it's all good. And if you can make your experience match the fact that it's a good thing, then you've really got something. A real problem that people have with meditation is they recognize a thought, and then their immediate response to that is, oh, my meditation sucks. I'm bad at meditation. And then what's happening is you have a negative reinforcement for that good thing, the good thing being recognizing your busy mind or recognizing a thought. You want to positively reinforce that. Every time you recognize a thought, you don't want to celebrate and like get out of your meditation by having a party in your brain, but a good way to reinforce that positively is to just, like, one of the ways that I like to do it, not in the dojo because it can get quite distracting, but I'll have a nice audible kind of relaxing sigh. So I'm meditating, I'll recognize like my face is doing this. I got thoughts and it's stressful. And then I recognize it and then I go, and it's just a nice kind of relaxing return back to the breath. So you want there to be a positive reinforcement for the recognition of the thought and a positive reinforcement. It feels really nice to return back to the breath, which is the opposite of what most people do. They recognize a thought and they're like, and you get into even more of a cycle of thought, and there's a negative kind of response to that. So you do the same thing when you recognize something is wrong with a physical technique that you're doing. Have some kind of a positive reinforcement for that. Say to yourself right away, this is good. This means that I'm recognizing something to fix. And then have fun fixing it. Have fun just going through the process of tinkering with the technique and finding out some way to make it better. This reinforcement will help you to enjoy the process of learning and getting better. And this is what we want. We want a positive reinforcement, a positive experience of that. Other question. You got one for me, right? What is it?
So I notice when I meditate and I have a time set to do that, it's always relaxing and nice. And sometimes I think about what I'm worried about. But then the times where I really need to meditate and I'm stressed out, I find that sitting to meditate just makes me more anxious. And doing something like Tai Chi, which is moving meditation, helps me be less distracted on that stressor. So do you have thoughts on when it's better to use something like Tai Chi, or just sitting there, or like prescribe how to get better at sitting to meditate when I'm stressed out?
Yes, I've got lots of thoughts about meditation, pun intended. So again, this experience is pretty common. And I like how, first of all, I'm sure that some of you missed this, but Zelda said, I have a set time. I assume this is a daily time, a set time every day when I meditate. And maybe it's more relaxing because you're used to it. You've got a routine with it, because you're not like necessarily actively stressing, although I'm sure sometimes you are actively stressing when it comes time for your daily meditation break. But when you are feeling actively stressed and you're like, this would be a great time to meditate, and then you sit to meditate and it is a terrible meditation, you're sitting there, and let's recognize this. What we think of as a terrible meditation is still a good thing, right? You want to get that positive reinforcement and recognize that just the fact that you are able to sit is a good thing. That is more than half the battle. Most people don't do that. Most people, when they're in that state, they just are like, I'm just going to be in this state, and they keep going in their brain. They keep stressing, and then they go off and they make bad decisions. They're like, I know how I'm going to fix this stress is by getting into a fight with somebody. I know how I'm going to get this stress. I'm going to go cut somebody off while I'm driving. That does not help. So what you want to be able to do is sit, and at the very least, just sitting still will help it to kind of dissipate. Of course, the longer you sit for, the more likely it is that when you're done with your sit, you'll be in a better state of consciousness. But in the beginning stages of a meditation that you're doing in response to a stressful state, it's going to be rough, almost for sure, until like probably years down the road in your meditation practice, you get really good at sitting and being able to just let all that go. And that is no small thing. Make no mistake. It is quite hard to be able to sit and with any kind of immediacy let go of your current state and just breathe. But it will get better with practice. So first of all, that is a very important thing to get. Just because when you sit now to meditate in a stressful state and you just notice yourself stewing in your stress, that doesn't mean that it won't get better eventually. It certainly will. And I do recommend that you have your separate meditation that you have, on a daily schedule, so that you have a lot of good experiences with meditation. So it's not always, I only meditate when I'm stressed, because then you're going to start to reinforce like meditation is a stress thing, and I just sit there and I stress. You don't want that. So let's talk about this idea of using moving meditation. Great idea. Absolutely wonderful. And there are lots of ways that you could do this. The ways that I like to do it the most are in conjunction with sitting meditation. So it might be that you sit to meditate and you realize this meditation needs a little bit of help. So then you get up to do something like Tai Chi as a moving meditation. You want to be careful with this, because if you get used to giving up on a meditation every time it's stressful, then you're going to cause yourself to have those busy thoughts and stressful thoughts, because your ego does not like it when you meditate. So you're going to kind of make that happen. So be careful with giving up on a meditation. So maybe instead, if you already started meditating, you can try returning to a breathing exercise or something else, something that is not necessarily moving, but it's a little bit more for your brain to focus on rather than just feeling the breath. And get that small but important distinction between breathing exercise, where I'm manipulating and counting the breath, and meditation, where I'm just feeling the breath. Now, you could decide, like, I'm stressed right now, I'm going to try doing meditation on my feet and do Tai Chi. Great. So there's a saying that my Sifu said all the time that I'm sure he got from somebody else. They say that moving meditation is 10 times, no, 100 times, no, 1,000 times more powerful than a sitting meditation. And there are a couple of reasons why this might actually be true, like in a stressful state where you have not only the breath, but also the body's movements to focus on. And this could be true just practicing your forms or practicing techniques in Kung Fu. Tai Chi has a really wonderful component to it where you're physically relaxing and moving slowly, and there is a very clear connection to the breath that's going to be very helpful for you there. But one of the nice things about it is simply that your brain has more to focus on that will take it away from that stressful cycle of thinking and give you something more relaxing to do with your brain. Moving your body in the right smooth way and focusing on your breath. That's great. But the other reason why moving meditation is so powerful is because it is a bridge from sitting meditation into everyday life. So what we're really aiming for here, not to get too big for our britches or put too much on the plate here, but what we're aiming for is enlightenment, which is not just like, while I meditate, I'm good, and then during the rest of life, I'm not good. We want to have that meditative state in everything that we do, ideally. So if you can sit and meditate and be calm, that's great. And then if you get up and you lose it immediately, that's not so great. So then meditation or your physical martial arts practice is meant to be a bridge from sitting to moving. And then it's a lot easier to go from some kind of moving meditation into now I'm walking, and I know I have this kind of goal in the back of my head of getting from point A to point B, but that's not really what I'm doing right now. What I'm doing right now is I'm focusing on my breathing. I'm in the present. I can feel my foot touch the ground. Anytime that you can just be totally mindful in movement is wonderful. And that means that stressful state is going to happen less often and with less severity and with less staying power if you're spending more of your day going back to the breath and back to the movement of the body, and you're able to just be in the present. So try that. Try just meditating all day long. That's what it is. Not just sitting, right? Most of us cannot just until you're a monk or a nun, you can't just sit and meditate all day long. But you can take it into movement. You can take it into everyday life. We are running a little bit short on time. Any other questions? Go ahead, sir.
Sometimes I have trouble sticking to a routine. Do you think meditating first in the morning would be more helpful for someone who wants more routine?
You nailed it, Prav. Meditating first thing in the morning is great. Like if you have a hard time sticking to a routine, and I mean just in general, but especially obviously if you have a hard time sticking to a meditation routine, the first thing you do, you roll out of bed and you sit on your cushion and you meditate, and that's it. Like however you sit at home. I do not actually like the idea of meditating in bed. Some people take it that far. The problem with that is bed is your sleepy place. And if you're meditating in your sleepy place, you're going to sleepitate. So you want to go sit somewhere else where you can, really have a good posture and meditate. And absolutely, there are a couple of really great things about this. One is it guarantees that you're going to get it done. Two, when you do it first thing in the morning, you have not had a chance to start to freak out yet. You have not had a chance to get all the stresses and thoughts of the day. So your meditation is more likely to be decently relaxed in the morning. Of course, if you are a super sleepy person and you didn't sleep well that night and you wake up and it's all you can do to keep your head up, then your meditation might be pretty rough, but you should still do it, even if it's just for a few minutes. 3, you are setting the tone for the rest of your day. So a lot of people wake up, and this used to be me. I have my alarm clock. My alarm, I'll tell you, most things that your alarm is going to be is terrible. It's a bad start to the day. Whether it's the sound, that sucks. Or I used to wake up to like heavy metal. That's like how I would get myself awake in the morning. I'd have my radio set. This is back in the day, before we all had smartphones, we had alarm clocks. And I'm not talking about way back in the day when you like wind it up and it like has two little bells. I know some people listening probably had that. I'm talking about there's a radio that you have like a little clock next to your bed and you set it and then it wakes you up with the alarm sound, or you can set it so that your radio woke up. That's what I had. And I just had it set on the local heavy metal station and that would wake me up, and it would really wake me up. Let me tell you, that's a stressful way to wake up. You wake up and you're like, you feel like you're having a heart attack. That's not a great way to start your day. So back to meditation, a nice way to start your day. It sets the tone. It gives you the sense of accomplishment. It's like, I've already done this. That's something you can feel good about. That's great. And also, it's like you're kind of priming your mind to go back to the breath throughout the day. This is going to be a really great thing to do. So meditating throughout the day as many times as you can, wonderful. For as much time as you can, wonderful. But try to start. One of the very first things you should do is meditate. This is what I do. I wake up, the first thing that I do is meditate. I do it before I even like wash my face or anything. If you are feeling real sleepy, maybe try splashing some cold water in your face, do something to wake up. But the longer you wait, the less likely it is to happen. And then you're stuck with meditating last thing at night, which is also wonderful. If you get to the end of the day and you have not meditated, that's when you do it. You meditate before you get into bed. And you might be laying in bed, falling asleep when you realize, wait a minute, I didn't meditate yet. It is not enough to just watch a couple of breaths as you're laying there in bed. You got to actually get up into a posture and meditate there. So this is great. Meditation is actually a great way to start to build a routine around. And I encourage you to use your martial arts practice in the same way. Like, have set days that you're coming to the dojo, have set times that you're practicing at home, for sure, with your meditation. This was, for me, the first time that I actually started getting any kind of discipline at all. And the first time that I started actually having a routine was in my meditation practice. I set this as one of my goals early on. And it was like the first goal that I ever set. And I'm like, I'm going to do this every single day. And I did it. I meditated every day, and I did it early in the day. I think it was the first thing that I ever did. Some days I miss it in the beginning of the day, so I had to do it at night, but I know, like, I'm doing this every single day. And then you can start to build stuff out from that. And anything that you're attaching to your meditation practice, maybe it's like right after meditation, now I'm going to eat, and all of a sudden your eating starts to become a more mindful thing. Or every day after I meditate, I'm going to go exercise. Now exercising becomes a more mindful thing. So try to use your practice, physical and internal, as a way to kind of set these, guideposts in your day, and then build out your routine and your discipline from there. Sit comfortably. So if you are sitting at home in a straight back chair, that's okay. If you're sitting in Seiza, or you're kneeling like this, or you're sitting cross-legged, full lotus, half lotus, however you're sitting, have your back straight. So even if you're sitting in a chair, try not to lean back against the chair. Try to have a totally straight spine. Your hands upturned at the point between your hips, right over your hips, between your thighs and your abdomen. Your eyes are closed, raised up to the point between the eyebrows. Relax and watch the breath. So for this meditation, if you notice that you are having a thought, try to reinforce your recognition of the thought positively. You can just return back to the breath If you're here in the dojo, don't do it with an audible sigh because that's going to mess up other people's meditation. If you want to do that at home, you can, but enjoy the process of returning back to the breath. This is a good thing. It's like coming back home after a long vacation away. But it was a stressful vacation. So you're coming back home and it is comfortable, feels right.